is it the job of the Director of National Intelligence to determine what is and what is not an imminent threat to the United States? She says no. Listen.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
False.
It seems like a fair question to ask. I mean, is the president supposed to come up with this information about what's an imminent threat based off of just out of thin air, based off of his imagination?
No, what he feels in his gut.
Or in what he feels in his gut? Or is it her job to tell him, Mr. President, here are what the threats are, here are how urgent these threats are, okay? And urgent is another way of describing what imminent might mean.
Well,
imminent is a
different
type of urgency, right?
Yes.
And then the president decides what's actionable. So to Andrew McCabe's point, I mean, is it just that Trump just gets to decide based on his gut, that's a threat, in which case, what are we in a world of fact or in a world of feeling?
No, we're in a world of fact. I think Andrew McCabe's characterization of her answer goes very far from what she actually said. The question of whether or not something is imminent to the point where you're going to order military strikes is separate, and is the sole decision maker there is the president. It's based on the intelligence that they're getting. And Tulsi Gabbard's point was, we present the probabilities of what is a potential threat, and the president gets to decide with counsel whether or not he believes that it qualifies as imminent. To the point of what imminent means, it's not the same as what we all use this term. It started with the Bush Doctrine, and it expanded greatly under Obama, and they're basically arguing three main points, I think, for what imminent threat actually can be in this role. Whether or not you have a window of opportunity, and they had obviously a window of opportunity in this case. Most of the people in Iran leadership are no longer alive. The ability to go after someone who is in fact, or an organization, a regime, is a potential threat. Do they have the capabilities to threaten us? And the argument from the beginning wasn't solely about tomorrow they can have nuclear capabilities. It was whether or not they were going to have the ballistic missile coverage to ensure that they can, in fact, cover their nuclear capabilities.
Can I just say,
that's what it is.
This is a lot of mission creep here, and also moving of the goalposts, because neither of those things that you pointed out deal with the imminence of the threat itself. Do they have the capabilities? That's
what imminence is in this context.
Let's talk about the main thing. Do they have the capabilities? Okay. Let me play what Tulsi Gabbard said about her written testimony on that front. Does Iran have the capability to rebuild its nuclear program? Here's what she said.
In your printed testimony today on page 6, and your last paragraph on page 6, as a result of Operation Midnight Hammer, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated. There's been no efforts to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. You omitted that paragraph from your oral opening. Was that because the president had said there was an imminent threat 2 weeks?
No, sir. I recognize that the time was running long, and I skipped through some of the portions.
In the opening statement you submitted to the committee last night also stated, quote, there has been no effort since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And that's the assessment of the intelligence community.
Yes.
Okay. So it's as plain as day. They destroyed their nuclear capabilities last year. They told us it was obliterated. Mm-hmm. She just confirmed they had made no efforts to reconstitute that program. How is that not significant?
It is hugely significant, and for her to say that she skipped that part because she was running long, there were other parts she could have skipped. That is a very crucial part. I'm a journalist and a former magazine editor. That's the lead. You lead with that. That's not what you leave out in the cutting room floor. So people are playing a little fast and loose here. That the fact that our own intelligence assessment said that the Iranians had indeed their nuclear program had indeed been obliterated, and that they were not rebuilding that capacity is crucial, because we started. Well, one of the crucial explanations from the Trump administration was that they were building back their nuclear threat, and that they were using their missile threat to protect their nuclear program. If the nuclear program doesn't exist, then this is a whole different argument. The administration has to present a very different case for the war, and they haven't done it.
And when she,
Then why did Iran tell our diplomats last month that they had the capability to produce 11?
Did they?
Did they?
They have not.
Did they?
They have not disputed the characterization.
Let me.
They have not walked
That's
it
a
back.
serious question. Did they say that or not? The only person who said that is one person, Steve Witkoff, who is not, by the way, in a Senate-confirmed position. He is not accountable to anyone but the president. The DNI was just there, okay? She never said that ever. And in fact, she said quite the opposite, that they had not rebuilt. They had not made any attempts to rebuild, that they were not in a position to have done it. So I think it's worth questioning, is that actually a true assessment of where Iran was as it relates to their nuclear capabilities?
Don't you think Iran would be walking back, saying, as hell rains upon their country?
I mean,
what's going on here?
No,
they
they've
have done.
They have done. They've said over and over again, we are not building nukes. We only have Steve Witkoff's word. And by the way,
and they were at the negotiating table, they say.
Making those kinds of threats is not atypical of a smaller power in a contest like this.
But do you believe them
you
when they say that the smaller dog has to
let
bark
me just
louder?
offer
But do you
this.
believe that?
Let me offer this. We are talking
what?
about. We're talking about Tulsi Gabbard as if she was a normal and qualified DNI. It was reported just a few months ago that she was on very thin ice with Trump. That's probably why she showed up in costume in Fulton County, Georgia, to try to buy herself a few more months and curry his favor. I am willing to bet a pair of Florsheim shoes, as somebody that has known Marco Rubio my entire adult life, that there is no way that Tulsi Gabbard is trusted by Trump or his inner circle, or that she is part of any decision making. It is scary to me that at a moment when we are in war, the person who is the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, is this woman who is not trusted even by people inside the White House. This is the same woman who, before she was appointed to this role, had a website where she was literally selling T-shirts that read, "No war with Iran." So if you think she was part of this decision and is in a position to give intelligence briefings to Donald Trump, I have a bridge to sell you somewhere.
I think what is happening right now in our country is that whether you voted for Donald Trump or not, I think there is a lot of skepticism is what our leadership is doing. And it's not because we're playing, with toy soldiers on a table at night. It's because there are real lives that are at stake. And it's not just the lives of soldiers, but there are people who can't put food on the table because the gas prices there are so many collateral consequences because of this action. And it just doesn't feel like our leaders are being honest with us. Now, if the end game in this is that you are fine with going to war with Iran, regardless whether they had nukes or not, I think the American people would actually appreciate that honesty. Like, we don't want them to have any power, and we are going to take them out with our allies in Israel. If that's your truth, say it. But don't lie to us and make us believe that we're stupid when we can also, we watch the same news, we read the same thing, and the inconsistencies are there. And so the what is really under all of this, why this testimony is so troubling is that, why would you leave that paragraph out conveniently? Because they run over the clock every day in Congress. Yeah. So today we're going to play by the rules.
She was
imminent. Was Fulton County imminent?
She was hardly able to keep a straight face as she pretended that it was
it's
a tiny.
I
think that's a really good point. It's a question, though, of whether or not you agree with the tactics versus whether or not you agree with the underlying issue. Point to a president.
No, it's also whether you agree with the outcome.
But point to a president who hasn't said they don't want to see Iran have power in the Middle East and they don't want them to have access to nukes. Like, every presidency has taken that position. So the tactics are different, and I think that that's a fair, obvious conversation to have and a debate to have. And I think we should always be skeptical, regardless of who the president is in power, which party they're from, when we strike militarily. I think that is a completely healthy conversation. But it is clear the end goal is the same for absolutely every president, at least in modern history, that Iran cannot obtain nuclear weapons.
But is the end goal regime change? Or is it not?
I do think that you guys are circling on actually the
We're making similar
the
points.
same
Yeah.
similar points. But I think the point that Ashley's making is an important one, which is that to your point, every president has had the same disposition about Iran. This president chose to act on it and use the justification of an imminent attack on the United States. And if that justification is not accurate, that would be misleading. Whereas there was another path that they could have chosen. They could have said, these are our objectives as a nation. We believe that this needs to be dealt with now and not later. Let's build a coalition. Let's go to Congress. Let's do it a particular way. Let's put it all on the table. And they could have done it that way. They did not. And so there is an accountability for the justification, because it does matter. Truthfulness in a
totally agree
democracy.
with
And if they're lying to the
matter.
American people, we know leaders have to make tough decisions, and people can't know all the intelligence before the strike happens. You can't sometimes win in that way. But you should not be lying to the American people, especially when soldiers die because of it.